More states in the US are finally moving to restrict gatherings and mandate the use of face coverings. Experts are warning a surge in COVID-19 cases is out of control. Infections have already exceeded 11 million and are rising rapidly. More states are also banning indoor dining, closing gyms, cinemas, and museums. High schools and colleges will also be going online. Michigan, Washington, and California are some of the latest states to introduce tighter restrictions. President-elect Joe Biden has warned against counting on a quick vaccine rollout. He says distribution will be a huge undertaking. Simon Marks joins us from Washington, D.C. For more. Simon, how well are people responding to states that have implemented anti-COVID measures and are tightening restrictions?
Well, it depends, Steve, on what states you're looking at. I mean, if you look at the state of California yesterday, 94% of the state has been put now under the harshest restrictions available to Governor Gavin Newsom. He described it as applying the emergency brake, given the dramatic uptick in infections there and all over the country. And, you know, if you go to places like San Francisco, where people, I think, broadly understand the need for restrictive measures, there's more understanding than there is in rural parts of the state. But there are other parts of the country where I think there's still considerable denial. I mean, I can tell you, even here in Washington, D.C., the mayor of the city is still talking about the possibility of all the kids going back to school in person in just a few weeks' time. And yet it seems highly unlikely that that's going to be possible to occur, given that not that far north from here in New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio is struggling to keep schools open that only just returned to in-person class work just a matter of weeks ago. Utah tells a very interesting story. There are public health officials there who are, on the one hand, delighted to see that people in substantial numbers are observing face mask orders, but infuriated to see that still a substantial minority of people are not. And they're greatly concerned about where COVID-19 is heading in that state. The hospital system in Provo, Utah, last week reported that it was not just awash with COVID-19, but that it was awash with conspiracy theorists trying to break into its hospital facilities with cameras in a bid, they hoped, to prove that COVID-19 is a hoax and that the hospital system there is not coming under pressure and strain. So there are still very, very big issues in this society to work out on the pandemic, and it's going to fall to Joe Biden, who told Americans yesterday not to gather in groups indoors of more than 10 people to celebrate the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday. It's going to fall to him to lead the nation out of this crisis next year.
And speaking of which, Joe Biden's first big economic speech where he laid out his plans, how did he do on that front?
Well, I'm bound to say, Otelli, it was very much like all the other speeches on the economy that Joe Biden made all the way through the campaign. There was nothing particularly groundbreaking about his address for those people who had followed, his economic plans and proposals during the last year. But he did meet yesterday and bring face-to-face some of the captains of industry in this country and trade union leaders. So you had, for example, the head of General Motors there. You had leaders from retail giants like Walmart, but also top officials from the AFL-CIO, the biggest trade union organization here in the United States. And really that communicated almost more than anything Joe Biden has said, the balance that he now says he wants to strike and that politically he needs to strike between capital, employers on the one hand, and unions hugely supportive of the Democratic Party and its bigger machine on the other hand. And so Wall Street now has to brace itself for a recalibration in economic outlook on the part of the US government, with a president moving into the Oval Office who's going to be much more constrained in what he can do as a result of the relationships that he has with those union leaders when, of course, compared to President Trump, his predecessor.
Thanks very much, Washington. Simon Marks there speaking to us from Washington, D.C.